The mods just never stop. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today we're talking about, yet again, some more modifications to my Storyteller. Just when you think you've done everything you could possibly do to a vehicle like this, new products come out, and these today are actually pretty neat. They're very small, and some things you might not even notice just looking at the van, but they actually add a lot of functionality, especially for all of this traveling that I'm doing right now down here in Arizona. Over the weekend, I had the van at Al's open house in Mesa, Arizona, and then a bunch of us went up to Scottsdale for the very first Adventure Van Expo of the year. It was the first time it was in Scottsdale, and it was a great time. I met a bunch of you guys who watch these videos out there, and it was great talking to every single one of you, and hopefully I get to see you at some more events like that in the future. Now, a lot of these modifications happened while we were at those shows. So the first one here, these door struts from Canyon Adventure Vans, they had just come out, and we had a little bit of time after the open house, so Jason from Canyon was able to help me out with this install. These are known as the stop stay door safety system, and it really hits the nail right on the head there. It allows you to open up your doors to a point where they stop, they stay, and it makes this whole back end of the vehicle more functional, a lot more practical, and a lot safer at the same time. While we installed these components on my van, I actually filmed kind of a how-to video, so if you guys want information on how to pick these up and install them yourself, you can find all of those details in the description down below. They are available on Canyon Adventure Van's website right now, and if you are handy, you can pick them up, or if you'd rather give it to the professionals, there are a bunch of shops all over the place that are already installing these. Al Vans if you're down here in Arizona, or if you're from Colorado like me. Adrenaline Vans is also doing these installs. So if you want to do something like this yourself, it's pretty straightforward, but you do have to be very precise with these measurements. You basically bolt these brackets onto the door in the factory location, and then on the van side, you actually have to cut a little bit of plastic right here. There are 3 riv nuts that go down into the metal beneath there. There are spacers in between there. You run the bolts in, you connect the strut with little safety pins here. And overall, the install will probably take someone who has experience about an hour. So if you're gonna do this yourself, just take your time and make sure you follow the instructions in the video over on Canyon's website. Now, the way the stop stays work is very straightforward, and I'm gonna be honest with you, looking at it on video really doesn't do justice, because I got a sneak peek of these before I actually saw them in person, and it looks cool, but I didn't fully understand it until I actually felt and experienced opening these things myself. So the reason for it is because obviously with an adventure van like this, we generally put a lot of gear on the outside. I have an Al tire carrier here with a full-size spare. Over on this side, I have the large expedition box on a B2 carrier. I got an Agency 6 shovel, and there's a lot of weight on these doors, which means when you are trying to close the doors, as an example right here, generally you're kind of slamming this because all the weight is coming forward very quickly. Over time, that's going to wear on a lot of these components, and also you kind of risk actually pinching stuff and damaging stuff that you may have in the back of your van. So that's on the closure side of things, but how about opening? Of course, when you open the doors, they stop and stay, and this is how easy it is to open the doors. This one is my favorite because there's like a little pinch right here. Just push that in and it opens itself. Again, it really doesn't show through on videos how cool these things are, and if you don't have experience with a Sprinter van, you might think it's kind of gimmicky, but I'm a huge fan. Not only is it safer to open and close the doors, but it's safer because if you are in a very windy environment like we were all weekend, it would take an absolute hurricane force wind to actually close these doors. These are 60-pound struts. And speaking of that, previously, I was using these little rubber door stops. You may have seen me talk about these in some videos in the past, and you basically wedge them up here into the actual hinge, and they work great, but oftentimes I wouldn't want to get out and jam these things in. They are effective if you want a really cheap and quick solution, but these are built in now. I can open my doors whenever I want, and I don't have to worry about the wind that's blowing on this door right now closing that thing on me. So once everything is all closed up, again, it requires a little more force to close, but it's not crazy. It also makes opening the doors from the inside a lot easier. So just one little pull and everything is just so dialed. Love this stuff. Anyone out there who has a Sprinter van with gear on the back, you can probably feel my excitement a little bit, but you really have to see them for yourself. It's just so satisfying. Now for the next mod, we're actually gonna hop in the van to talk about this one, because what we're talking about is actually located down here. Can you guys guess what it is? Now, if you guys have been following my channel for a while, you will know that my old van, the Sat van, had a ton of modifications, just like the Storyteller. But one thing that I haven't really altered with this van is the actual performance of it. The 4x4 V6 turbo diesel, that van was great, but I also upgraded a lot of things like the intake. I had that thing tuned. I also had a pedal commander on there. Well, now I've added something kind of similar to that, but maybe not for the reasons that you guys think. So this right here is a new product known as the IO pedal. I first picked this up when I was at Adrenaline Vans last week. This thing is made in Germany, so of course it should be pretty good for my German vehicle. It is the multifunctional accelerator pedal tuning. So products like this have existed for vans for a long time, even the all-wheel drives. There are some options out there, but this one offers a lot more. I wasn't even really interested in it for the accelerator tuning. Essentially, you're changing the throttle response with a bunch of different modes, and it's going to change the way the van actually drives. This one, however, has a high idle function. Now, because I chose the base model, the Storyteller Classic mode, I don't have that fancy high idle that the Beast modes have. And now if you had the patience to kind of wait for things to come out, this is available, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than some of the other options that you would have to do aftermarket to get high idle. Now, you guys probably already know this, but why am I interested in high idle? The Storyteller van has a secondary alternator, and once I cross a certain RPM, my house batteries back here are charging. Now, I did use the high idle last night, and I have been driving around today, so as you can see, I'm basically almost at 100%. I got 458 hours remaining on the Volta system. But as I'm sitting here at a normal idle, you will notice that something is still drawing power. That's probably my fridge, and we're drawing about 43 watts. That is where the IO pedal comes in, and there is actually an app to control it. Now, I did this install myself in the parking lot at Adventure Van Expo, and there was like a little bit of a crowd there. Some friends were coming over like, what are you doing in your engine bay, and like pulling stuff apart? When the van is sitting for a few days and I'm not driving it, I do have solar on top, but it's not enough to keep things going like the inverter and if I'm using the microwave and things like that. So I need the high idle more than I need anything else. Now, coming back to the front of the van, I did not film an actual install video on this, but it is very, very simple. You're basically plugging in this wire harness right in line with the pedal sensor right here. I have that running up and over down to, if I can get it out of here, the brains of the unit, which I just have tucked on the side of my footwell over here. I do still need to zip tie everything up in place and make it all tidy under here. That runs through the firewall. And then as we come around to the front of the van, it comes through the firewall right here. Again, I still need to zip tie everything, but I ran it with all the other wiring that was done by Will at Adrenaline Vans. And then this actually requires you to remove the air box and all of the fittings that are found on it. You remove this heat shield and tie it into the camshaft sensor. There's a cam position sensor underneath this shield right here, and it's just like the pedal underneath. You basically plug it in line, so the van can sense everything just as it would from the factory. So now, while the van is running, as we're looking at it on the user interface here, it's a pretty simple app. You have a few different modes for the pedal sensitivity. Traffic is going to be one of your lower modes where it kind of like flattens out the curve a little bit. Eco's the same way, but just a little more speed off the line. And then when you get into the sport, that really sharpens the acceleration curve. And then you also have extreme, which I have not even driven in yet. All of these modes also have sensitivity settings underneath them, so you can go from 0 all the way up to 4. I've been driving in Sport 2 just to kind of test it out. I don't really know what my favorite is yet, but it will probably be something on the Sport mode. So all that stuff is great. You can also drive it stock if you have that off, but the best thing is right down here. We have a valet mode, a secure mode, which really dumbs down everything, but then high idle. If I press and hold this, it will kick into the high idle menu. You have a target RPM as well as a timer. So let's say I just want to idle the van for a little bit. We'll do it for 5 minutes. We'll set the RPM at, let's say 1700. I then slide to unlock, accept the terms, and now we'll check everything. Currently at a negative 42 watt draw and idling just under 1,000. I'm going to hit start. And now we're idling at 1700 RPMs. And if we come to the back in real time, you would see this number going up, but I'm currently at very close to 100% charge, so that's not gonna change. I'm gonna get my inverter turned on and run down the battery a little bit. That way you guys can actually see what this looks like while it's charging. And last night, I think I saw it pumping about 2,500 watts, maybe even 3,000 at some times. And that's of course going to depend on your RPMs. Which means now I never have to worry about running out of power even if I am parked at a camp spot or at a show for a long time. I gotta give a big thanks to the guys at Agile Off-Road, because when I first installed this thing, I was kind of troubleshooting it and I couldn't get it to work properly. And that was because I did not read the instructions on this box. I just went ahead and installed it, and I found out later in the day that it needed to be calibrated. All that takes is the ignition to be on in the accessory mode, push the pedal down to the floor about 3 times, and then it'll be calibrated and the high idle will work. So the guys at Agile actually brought this one down to the show for me to check out after first seeing it at Adrenaline Vans in Colorado, and it seems like you will be able to pick these things up pretty much at any shop. Probably pretty soon too, so keep an eye out for something like this if you guys want high idle in your van when it doesn't have high idle from the factory. So that's really all I had for this quick update. Just wanted to show you guys where I'm at, what I'm doing, some changes that I've made to the van. I'm going to be working in the Phoenix area for the next 2 days before heading down to Tucson. I'm going to be picking up Ashley, and she's going to join me for the rest of this adventure. From Tucson, we'll probably hit Saguaro National Park, Tombstone, and then Bisbee, of course, before heading back to Colorado. So I'm really itching to get out and actually camp now, because we've been sitting in parking lots for the past couple of days, but things come and go in waves. I spend a lot of time on the pavement, but I will be getting on some dirt here very soon. If you guys have any questions on the stop stay or the IO pedal, let me know in the comments down below. And if you are new here, consider clicking subscribe, because I make new videos every single week. Now, as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.